He'll be appointed a voting member. We have Linda. Alan Wolf has joined us late, so
Oh, come on, it's not that late.
it's late enough not to be a voting member.
All right.
How are you, Mr. Wolf?
I'm very fine. Thank you. I hope you all are as well.
Thank you for joining. So I call the meeting to order. There is for people that, just for sake of parliamentary procedure, there was an updated agenda issued a couple days ago. Hopefully everybody got a hold of that. And it did add a item to the new business, which we'll discuss. So the next order of business is review the meetings of the prior meeting, which was dated September the 3rd. I find them to be acceptable. Anybody have any comments?
Look fine to me.
Okay, can I entertain a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of September 3rd.
Just to note that those that you need to be present at the meeting to vote in the affirmative. If you're not at the meeting, you need to abstain. All in favor, say aye.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
I need a second to the motion.
Mel?
Linda second, didn't he? Did you?
I think Linda seconded it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't hear it. Okay, Linda seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Okay,
opposed?
so Linda, Paul, and George were not at the last meeting, correct?
So I was abstain. Yes.
Okay, so we have 2 abstentions, but it still carries. Thank you.
All right, next, old business. We have no old business. New business, we have a memo from the planning and zoning, from to the planning commission, from the zoning, from Nina Mack on behalf of the zoning commission. And it relates to a proposed zoning regulation and map change. Did everybody receive that?
Yes.
It pertains to lots, a lot change from R40 to R15 involving lots number. There's a little discrepancy because in the letter from the engineer to the zoning commission, he refers to them as parcels number 28 and 29. But on the zoning map, they're actually parcels 33 and 35 on Woodview Drive.
I'm sorry, there is a change to the minutes. I just realized.
I didn't understand what you said, Mel, sorry.
There's a change to the minutes. I just realized there was a mistake.
Oh, okay. Okay, you want to go back to, we are going to reopen the discussion on the minutes. Go ahead.
Where it said Mel Utah's wife is chairperson, though she's a committee member, I am the chairperson.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I should have caught that before.
So can we amend the motion to reflect the correction identified by Mel? All in favor of amending the motion to reflect the change identified by Mel? Please vote aye. All opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Minutes will be dutifully updated to reflect the identified change. All right, going back to item 4, new business, the change. Apparently, the applicant requesting the zoning change from R40 to R15 bought the property on July the 9th. I'm sorry, Linda, go ahead.
No, excuse me.
I really apologize. I'm having difficulty hearing people. I don't know why. Usually I have a great internet connection.
Not just you, Bruce. I couldn't hear it as well.
Don't feel special. Linda, was that a comment? Could you restate your comment, please?
No, I sneezed and I said, excuse me. But he can't hear me.
I can't understand. I apologize, but I can't understand what you're saying.
Bless you, Linda.
Nothing. Nothing.
All right.
I think she's frozen right now.
All right, moving on to reiterate, just to reiterate, the proposal is a zone change from R40 to R15. The abutting 5 property owners were noticed. Does anybody have a conversation? Apparently, the backstory is the gentleman that bought the property on July the 9th of 2019. He was under the impression that it was R15 zoning like the rest of the neighborhood is, but apparently the zoning regulations were amended on July 5th of 2019, 4 days prior to his purchase of the property, to rezone the bulk of the property on Woodland Drive to be R15, which is conforming to the current size of the lots. For some reason, parcels that address currently 35 and 33, which are the 2 joining parcels he purchased, were not rezoned. They were left at R40, non-conforming. It seems that the bulk of the neighborhood, in fact, is an R15 conforming lot neighborhood. It's unclear why those 2 particular parcels were not rezoned as part of the rezoning effort initiated on July 5th. But what he is asking for, he apologizes for his oversight, and is asking for both lots to be now zoned R15 from R40 to conform with the neighborhood. Any conversation, discussion about that request? I am inclined to agree with the request to rezone, given that the rest of the neighborhood is in fact conforming R15. And for some bizarre reason, the zoning commission omitted those 2 lots when they did the rezoning in the summer of 2019, and I'm not clear why. Anybody have any particular feelings one way or the other in terms of entertaining a recommendation to the zoning commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
this is Alan. Perhaps we should ask them to, provide us with any kind of information or background why they would have done this.
According to the document, the change from the original subdivision in 1957 was to recognize that the majority of the lots were all non-conforming in R40, and that the change that was made, recognizing that they legitimately were R15 size lots, was made. It is not clear in the letter from the engineer as to why that those particular 2 lots, which are 21,627 square feet and 23,919 square feet respectively, were left in the R40 zone designation when the rest of the street, which appears to be equal to or more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 18, 19, 20, some 20 or 21 lots in total. Why those 2 lots were not rezoned at the time of the July 5th, 2019 change, 4 days before the applicant in fact purchased the properties.
Were they contiguous?
Yes, the lots in question are contiguous. If you look, there is a map in your packet.
Yes.
Which clearly identifies that there is an existing structure on one. The other lot appears to be vacant. Reading into it, I would assume that the applicant's intent was to sell the individual lot and build a conforming home on that lot. But that is not what is indicated in the rezoning application. Rezoning application is one page document from Artel Engineering in Brookfield, Connecticut, painting what I essentially just described, and asking for the rezoning back to R15 to conform to the rest of the street.
Okay.
So my inclination is to support the proposal. Any comment, feedback? Would anybody care to entertain a proposal motion?
Just curious, did we get any feedback from zoning on this, or is there any compelling reason why they left those two lots out? Was it an error, omission, or is there something we don't know about?
Good question. Unknown. All we have in the packet is a request for an opinion from zoning, the application for the change, and the letter from the engineer, and documentation that in fact the 5 adjacent property owners were noticed of the proposed change. But there's little besides the one-page Artel Engineering Group document dated August the 29th on behalf of the owner, Mr. Neil Doughty, requesting said change and articulating, in fact, the zoning change was made 4 days before he completed purchase of the 2 lots.
So, Mr. Acting Chairman, I would just suggest that if we go back to them and say, yes, subject to you telling us whether there was any compelling reason why you would see that these 2 particular lots should not be treated in the same way. Other than that, if there is none, then planning would look favorably on the request.
Can you can someone, one of the active board members, phrase that as a request to the land use office to author a document on the planning commission's behalf requesting clarification on the proposed zoning change?
Is there a number? Bruce, help. Bruce, why don't you do it? You're usually good about it.
Yeah, but I'm the chairman, so you gotta do it.
Well, thank you.
All right, motion to request that the land use office author a memo on the planning commission's behalf requesting any possible awareness on the part of the zoning commission as to why lot numbers
33 to 35.
33 and 35 were not rezoned from R40 to R15 back when the zoning regulations were amended on July 5, 2019. And request clarification be delivered to the, as well as providing additional documentation on the current state of the application and as to whether any abutting property owners have in fact registered any negative or positive criticism of the zoning request. Anyone, second?
I'll second it.
Motion carries. Okay, any additional comment on that item? All right, moving along to item number 5, correspondence, minutes of other boards. We received 2 Board of Selectmen, Zoning Board of Appeals. There was a zoning commission meeting, but we did not receive at the time of the meeting minutes for the zoning meeting. So the 2, I did review the 2 meeting minutes. The Board of Selectmen meeting, the only thing I noted was there was a presentation by the Arts Commission commissioning a sculpture for the Phase 3 Pocket Park in Four Corners. And for people that aren't aware, that's the little quarter-acre chunk of state-owned property that is just north of the Old Hearth Restaurant. It's a sculpture by it'll be a 10-foot high sculpture by David Boyhanian, if I don't mess up his name, out of New Fairfield, Connecticut. It's entitled Cotyledon Rising. And there's a better article that came out today from the Brookfield Arts Commission with a little news announcement talking about it, and I'll read it to you guys so you can better understand the nature of what it is. Please see the attached Arts Commission presentation to the Board of Selectmen on September 8th. You can email Steve Dunn with any feedback you have regarding the sculpture. The Board of Selectmen discussed the proposal and any feedback at their next meeting, scheduled for October 5th at Monday, October 5th at 7 p.m. The Brookfield Arts Commission has selected Cotyledon Rising, a sculpture by artist David Boyhanian of New Fairfield, Connecticut, as the centerpiece of the new pocket park included in Phase 3 of the New Village streetscape plan. Cotyledon is the first leaf or set of leaves that sprout from a seed. The sculpture is about new beginnings, growth, and a bright future. The 10-foot tall stainless steel sculpture, Cotyledon Rising, will depict a welcoming entrance to the town center and provide elements of nature, warmth, and growth. The sculpture embraces the suggestions collected by the Arts Commission by reflecting Brookfield Ironworks and farming history, providing a bright, abstract, and warming sculpture. Given the reflective nature of stainless steel, the sculpture will be bright in the daytime. With the addition of night-long accent lights, the sculpture will shine during the evening and continue to welcome visitors to the town center. So that was kind of interesting. The second item of interest was at the August the 3rd meeting, the selectmen discussed a letter dated 7/15/2020 from Dr. Raymond Sullivan, Director of Health Profession, and where he rendered his professional opinion on the safety of 5G technology and wireless radiation from a public health standpoint, concluding no adverse short or long-term health effects. Mr. Dunn stated he would draft a letter to the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, to urge that they look at this subject more carefully to make sure that the 5G technology being placed on telephone poles in the community has no potential health effects. Mr. Dunn noted that he has been working on COVID-related issues and other activities since the BOS last met, and will draft a letter for the next regular board meeting scheduled on October the 6th. We're going to be discussing that item in a later section of our agenda. So I'd like to table that conversation for later. But if there are no questions on the Board of Selectmen minutes, I will move on to the minutes of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I didn't see anything of interest, especially to our committee. Does anybody have any questions about the 2 minutes I discussed?
No, Mr. Chairman, as long as we're tabling the discussion till to the next portion, then I'm fine.
Yeah, because we have that on the agenda. We have the upgrade to 5G technology scheduled for item 7 tabled items. So we can address that in more painful detail.
Yeah,
We'll get
thank
to
you.
that point. Moving on to item 6, informal discussions. And included in your packet is a Connecticut Viewpoints news article entitled "Connecticut's Affordable Housing Laws Have Unintended Consequences," dated September 4 by Alex Harrison in the Connecticut Viewpoints blog. It talks about 830G, and obviously we've spent a painful lot of time talking about and living with the ramifications of 830G, as Brookfield was one of the targeted states involved heavily in that. One of the interesting parts in the article is it does talk about a new bill labeled HB, House Bill 5132, which is up before the Connecticut State Legislature, sponsored by State Representative Kristen McCarthy Bailey. And that's how HB 5132, which if it passes, will end up removing even more local control from local towns. The bill would erode local zoning regulations as it currently reads, because the assumption is towns like Fairfield, specifically called out in the news article, are attempting to support the construction of more affordable housing. And it goes on to say, you know, if you really care, you will vote in people that support a rewriting of 830G and the anticipation that HB 5132 fails and returns control to the local planning and zoning commissions as should occur. Any comment on that article?
Unless I was misinformed, I believe the 830G federal mandate is no longer in place. Is that correct?
Well, we've got as I understand it, there is a moratorium that I think exists for another 18 months on enforcement of the 830G law.
Correct. Yeah, we got that in town, but I thought the federal mandate either sunsetted or for whatever reason is no.
It would be helpful, George, if you could bring some information about that to the next meeting. I have not heard that personally.
Okay, I'll take a look.
It'd be interesting to see whether in fact the federal law might superpose over 830G. Clearly, we're protected for at least another 18 months by the moratorium that was enacted on
Correct.
5 or 6 town behalf. But yeah, it would certainly be interesting to see if federal control and if that actually would stand up and given a most.
Sorry.
Go
Another
ahead, Karen.
planning member.
Linda, what was that again, please? Couldn't hear you.
Sorry. My cat wants to be on planning. Sorry.
All right, if there's no more, any other informal discussion items any board member would like to bring up?
So, Bruce, the 5132, is that a continuation of the 830G? Is that the bill that's being proposed? I'll look it up
Yeah,
after the
it's
meeting. But
unclear based on the article as to whether it is an intention to replace. All that the news article alludes to is a further erosion of current local zoning regs. And as it currently reads, it doesn't go into any greater detail than that.
Okay, I'll take a look into it.
Yeah, it's unclear based on the article. Any other topics for informal discussion?
You can't hear me anyway, can you? No, I have no sound.
You're still breaking up, Linda.
You can't hear me.
It might
We
be,
got you now, Linda. Go ahead.
might be helpful
Can
if you had a comment, if you placed it in the chat window.
No, that's okay. You can't hear me, Bruce? No,
No, I apologize.
no.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you sound
Next
like.
time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, if nothing more for informal discussion, we'll move on to item 7, tabled items. 7A is Plan of Conservation and Development. I have no update on a possible sewer expansion of Counterwood Shores. Upgrade to 5G technology. Everybody should have received a letter that Alan sent to me regarding a technologist's opinion on 5G technology. And what I'd like to do, if people have read it, I'd like to have a conversation with an eye towards potentially entertaining a motion to forward the letter with a board opinion, if it's deemed suitable, to the Board of Selectmen, specifically Mr. Dunn, as he's getting prepared to send a letter to the FCC on this topic. Alan, would you care to explain in a layman's terms what you've discovered and what your packet of a letter and 3 attachment articulates?
With pleasure. Can you all hear me then?
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay. To all, the background to this is that, and forgive me if I'm beating a dead horse, if you already know my background, but my training has been with RF engineering. That I've been associated with radar systems and with telecommunication, radio communications for many years. It's not exactly what I'm doing now, but the training doesn't leave you. What I did was I took a look at, because through the request of Bruce, and also just because I saw so much what I felt to be misinformation. There was the planning, WestCog, meeting that I attended down south, and also what I've heard in the news. There was a lot of misinformation about what I believe to be misinformation about the effects of the new 5th generation radio communication system. So what I did at the request of Bruce was to basically give, I hope, was an update on, what I felt was, data in the market that could, provide a little bit of science and background behind, the issues. And just to put it in a nutshell, the problem is that that people, as with the COVID situation, what you can't see is really is fearful, there, to people. And I think that radio communications are exactly the same kind of if you can't see it, and you could be potentially harmed by something you can't see, then I think that that's an issue. So again, science, I think, is the way to to make sure that people can understand whether something is whether it should be feared or not. And so what I did was basically created a letter that was just some bullets, was laying out the background behind it. And also I wanted to make sure that the data, the testing, the science that was underpinning the situation was also included. And what I don't want to do is to go into all the details. I think what I'll do is just to say, look, what we're living with now, and the 5th generation systems that will be on our light poles, and the systems that we'll be seeing in town, there's no difference. Actually, there's even less of a fear factor that should be there than some of these other technologies. There's, when you've been using your telephone, there's no difference now than there would be for 5th generation. And so, the standards, the testing, the amount of radiation that people would be subjected to would be no greater to previous generations, and in fact are, for the most part, they're actually lower. So I wanted to make sure that we actually went into record to say to our first selectmen and the rest of the town, to give them a bit of background as to what the situation is. Has everybody been able to see the email that I went ahead and typed out to Bruce? Can you see that?
Mhm.
Where is it? Because I didn't receive one.
Right.
All right, so I'll just give it to you in a nutshell. The bottom line is, safe exposure levels have been dropping for years. What I was protected by as a Navy radar systems engineer, going up onto the masts on the ship, relative to what every civilian has, that is subjected to every day.
And the proposed 5G equipment on the poles.
Exactly. Is actually, it's been dropping for years and years in terms of the amount of radiation that people, that the bodies, the scientific bodies have been saying is safe levels. So what we see now is that, and I'll just say, look, the studies and the data right now are all determined by the World Health Organization. They are signed up by, or signed onto by, the United States, the United Kingdom, and all the other radio frequency organizations in the world. They get together and they say what they believe to be safe levels. All right, so not only are they safer than they have been, or let's say less or lower than they have been in years, but the simple fact is that there's no difference from generation. So if you've been using your telephone for years and years and years, what you're going to be seeing in terms of 5th generation is going to be no different than any previous generations of equipment. Just the fact that it's on a telephone pole doesn't mean that it's going to be any higher. It's actually going to be at the same or the lower levels. So I think the point being is that people are scared, and I can get that. But the thing is that if they're using a telephone today, then there's been a lot of background in terms of what they should be able to what they should feel they should be able to use it for. The different frequencies, the different emergency services, fire ambulance, military satellite, all these people have been using them for the same for years. All they're doing is now we're using it for, some of it is being used for fifth generation. So I tried to include a lot of data on studies that have been done, actual, so I did the email, but I also included some emails that had some actual data from a couple studies that have been performed by the United Kingdom Communications Authority. So they actually have data. The bottom line here is what I would suggest, going back to the first selectman, is that we can certainly provide, what I've sent, but I think our position ought to be that, this is really no different from previous generations, from previous years.
And in point of fact, if you look at, I don't mean to interrupt, Alan, but if you look at one of the attachments Alan provided, it clearly articulates that in point of fact, 5G, one, is a marketing tool. And the reality is the frequencies are spread across, as Alan mentioned, fire, emergency protection, ambulance service frequencies today, as well as existing 2G and 4G portions of the spectrum. So from a frequency perspective, it's not a lot different than what we're using today. It might be specific to different bands or portions of those bands. But it's essentially the same frequency spectrum that cell phones have been operating under for 40 years. And then, one of the causative factors is witnessed by, some people have suggested in the press that, that there are satellites that are going to run 5G. Well, that's, it's counterintuitive to the capability. If in fact the satellite could transmit at 5G, why would you, one, not put it on existing cell towers, or two, why are we looking at putting electronic repeaters on every telephone pole? Because of the fact that it is such a low power that it's not going to travel very far. I mean, cell phones generally are line of sight to begin with, which is why, if you were like I was when I worked for 17 years in Stanford, a frequent driver on the Merritt Parkway, every time you went into a dip, you lost your cell phone connection because it tended to be line of sight. And that's why we needed so many stupid cell phone towers in a state that's not, not mountainous like Utah or Colorado, but we have our share of hills. And, for decades, I struggled with, losing calls and calling people back when I got to a high point on the Merritt Parkway. But I think it's, to Alan's point, it's, this isn't new. It's an extension of existing technology. And if anything, as the technology and electronics improves, the power levels are dropping, not increasing. So to be concerned about, the amount of radiation you get flying in a jet plane from LA to New York is greater than you get in a chest X-ray. So those kinds of things people often forget, that, there's radiation around us all the time. But then in point of fact that, we need to, particularly given the past 3 years of the political climate in this country, it's significant that, engineers like Alan and myself try to redrive conversations back to the science and look at, the governing bodies, the body of scientific research, and try to assuage the emotion and the angst that's clearly out there. And to that end, I'd like to ask the board, as my fellow board members, to consider whether we could or should at this point entertain a motion to forward Alan's letter on to the Board of Selectmen and or whether you'd like another 2 weeks. We do have a meeting scheduled for October 1, our first meeting in October, which is before the October 5 Board of Selectmen meeting. So if people feel that they haven't had the time to fully take a look at Alan's email and the 3 attachments, potentially we could table it if you wanted to, but my recommendation as an individual board member is that we do come together and approve the transmission of the letter in question to the Board of Selectmen to help to clarify and bring some scientific basis to this heated conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. I'll just make the comment. I know that I had a side message, that's asked about a copy of the email that I sent on. It's actually within, it was included in the minutes.
The updated agenda, the email that went out today, yes.
Yeah. So if you double click on the meeting agenda, a copy of my email plus I also provided 2 measurement reports that were included by the United Kingdom body that does all of the assessment of frequency, radiation, their scientific body. So that's what the measurement report, Renfrew Street and Wedgwood Gate survey was. It actually measured this new technology, fifth generation. It gave information relative to what the other generations were in terms of the amount of radiation and how they and how actually it was in terms of relative to the law at levels, relative to the acceptable levels, what were they actually receiving? Because these are typical studies. When you're walking down the street, what do you actually receive in your body?
What are you exposed to?
Exposure, exactly. All right. So, Mr. Chairman, I would be very, very happy to have this actually sent through to the first selectman, because I think it provides a little bit of it's a body of evidence. It's not things that I'm just coming up with out of my head. I think that these are things that are far better bodies.
Right, it's global news that is peer reviewed by scientists, and it's theoretically those are the people we should trust for this kind of stuff to try to assuage the comments that are floating around the Facebooks and the various blogs on the internet that really don't have basis in science, and to try to help bring a scientific method to the madness.
Exactly.
And I think that we have a duty, as a commission, as a planning board, providing forward-looking guidance to the town that this is clearly within our bailiwick to consider. And I ask that people give thought to and entertain a motion of, either proposing to send the letters in the attachment on to from us, or to table this for another 2 weeks, because we do have an opportunity on October 1st if we can make it quick to get it before the board for the Board of Selectmen for their October 5 meeting. So can do we have some conversation, and would people with the board be interested in entertaining such a motion?
Yeah, I would just recommend that if there's no immediate urgency, now that we've discussed this, and give us a couple of weeks to take a look into it. And I think on our October 1 meeting, I certainly believe that we could all comfortably sign on to this, review the information Alan sent out. Knowing that we live in a world now that we're literally basking in radio waves 24/7 here.
George, could I have a motion then to table this item for the next meeting?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion. We table this until the October 1 meeting.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Renee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Any other conversation about that topic? I think it's, it's certainly, thank you, Alan, for the time you put in.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, it's good stuff. And again, I think it's clearly, as the acting chair, I think it's clear within our bailiwick to render an opinion. And I do respect everybody else's opinion and want to hear from, so once you've had a time to take a look at both Alan's memo, which I think has been written in, fairly understandable. It's easy for, as a mechanical engineer, it's easy to delve into, language that some people don't understand, but I think Alan took a lot of time to quote unquote dumb it down to a level where the common person can understand it. I think it helps to bring clarity as well as the attachments from European governing bodies recognizing and, both the measurements and their perspective on the topic as well. So I thank you, Alan, for the time you took to put it together, and I apologize for taking so long, but my day job kept me from focusing on it as best. I planned to address it earlier, but I do thank everybody, and we'll continue to discuss it. All right, moving on to item 8. Before we entertain our favorite motion, I just want to wish a happy Rosh Hashanah to all our Jewish friends, constituents, fellow board members. For those who don't know, Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, and it is a celebration of the year's beginning. So congratulations and Happy New Year to those that.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a motion?
Is Linda on?
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So let it be written, so let it be done. Thank you all. I hope I was fulfilled ably John's shoes. He'll be back next meeting.
Great job, Bruce.
Thank
Yeah,
you for joining me, and
Thank you.
enjoy.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Enjoy the fall.
Good night.
Bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dan.